A young man sat outside a dilapidated house, his frustration evident. For over 2 weeks, he had been trapped in this cursed place, unable to escape. Hunger gnawed at him, leaving him weak and miserable. His frustration deepened as he recalled how an elder had intentionally betrayed him, arranging an operation that exposed his location and unleashed demons upon him. Their attack left him severely wounded. Now he had to find a way to recover quickly, or revenge would remain a distant dream, let alone his return to his own world. To make matters worse, he had lost all his cultivation. Stripped of his powers, he couldn't leave the mountain or defend himself against the wild beasts and demons lurking nearby. Taking a deep breath, he tried to calm his turbulent thoughts, silently praying that no monsters would come his way. But as he sat there, a low growl echoed from behind him. His heart sank. Turning around, he saw a large, predatory beast staring directly at him. "You're good at running, but terrible at hiding," the creature sneered. Realizing the beast had been tracking him all this time, the young man felt terror rise in his chest. It was a demonic tiger. The tiger mocked him, pointing out that his spiritual root had been damaged, his strength dissipated, and that he was now no better than an ordinary human. Panic overwhelmed him as he cried out, lamenting his fate. Was this really the end? He hadn't even experienced love. He hadn't held hands with anyone. "It's not fair," he thought desperately. Seeking a lifeline, he tried contacting his system, pleading for guidance or aid. Tears welled up in his eyes as memories of the past 3 torment-filled years flooded his mind. He had endured so much. What good is having an incredible system if it doesn't come to my rescue now? He wondered bitterly. Meanwhile, the tiger, unimpressed by the young man's distraction, roared in irritation. "Don't ignore me! That's not how this works!" the beast growled. But the young man, focused on his connection to the system, didn't respond. Enraged, the tiger lunged at him. At the last moment, the young man managed to activate a protective barrier. "That's right," he declared. "Let's see how strong this invincible shield really is." The tiger hit the ground hard, unable to break through. Bewildered, the beast roared, "Impossible! You're just a mortal now." Opening its massive jaws, it revealed sharp, gleaming teeth and bellowed, "Go to hell." Though the beast's ferocity would terrify anyone else, the young man remained resolute. With his magical sword now active, he was ready to fight back. Channeling its power, he reinforced his barrier and unleashed a massive energy pulse, throwing the tiger far away. His system had not failed him. The power of his sword split the skies, its brilliance reaching even the immortal realm. Far above, a mighty overlord watched in astonishment. "How dare a mere mortal challenge the heavens?" he bellowed, enraged at the young man's audacity. Deciding to suppress this act of defiance, the overlord prepared to act. Meanwhile, the divine cauldron, a relic of immense power, hurtled from the heavens and descended to the earth with unstoppable force. From the ground, the radiant light of the object was so intense that it seemed like a second sun in the sky. This luminous phenomenon originated from the Soul Revival Cave. Observing the brilliance, a demon realized that the object was none other than the divine cauldron of the 9 heavens, a treasure personally sent down by the divine emperor. Bewildered, the demon couldn't grasp the full significance of the event or why it was unfolding. In the mortal world, members of the 10,000 Immortal Ball Sect and the Heavenly Sword Pavilion were equally stunned. An elder of the pavilion, gazing into the distant horizon, witnessed the moment the immortal sword cleaved the sky. His expression grew solemn. "That was the pinnacle of the sword Tao in the mortal realm," he murmured in awe. The elder understood this was no ordinary event. Spotting the celestial artifact, he concluded it was an unparalleled opportunity. Without hesitation, he ordered all disciples to search for the artifact and retrieve it, no matter the cost. Meanwhile, in the celestial realm, the divine emperor issued a decree. "A lunatic in the mortal realm has dared to cut the heavens," he thundered. "I have sent the divine cauldron of the 9 heavens. It must be retrieved at all costs." The emperor commanded his 4 great generals to descend to the mortal realm, warning them to spare no one who obstructed their mission. Bowing in unison, the generals pledged to carry out the order and immediately set out for the mortal world. Back in the ruins, the young man stood in shock. The display of power was beyond anything he could comprehend. How had his sword's energy triggered such a massive reaction? He couldn't fathom the devastation it had caused. Then, his system alerted him. He had gained points for activating the sword and for defeating the 3rd stage demon tiger. Additionally, the area of his invincible barrier had expanded to 14 meters. The system also rewarded him with a rookie gift set, further surprising him. One particular feature caught his attention: the ability to use anything as a sword. Leaves, twigs, or even mundane objects could now serve as weapons within his invincible realm. Excited, He decided to test this newfound power. Plucking a leaf from a nearby tree, he swung it through the air like a sword. To his amazement, it cut cleanly, demonstrating the potential of his enhanced abilities. Encouraged, the young man decided to conduct more experiments. Using only his fingers, he carved a wooden log into the shape of a man. The precision of his craftsmanship left him astonished. His newfound powers were not only destructive but also remarkably refined. However, a nagging question lingered in his mind. He contacted the system and asked why the barrier's area was fixed. He believed it should expand without limits. The system clarified that the barrier could grow, but only incrementally. Each 1,000 points added just 10 meters to the invincible area. The young man's excitement dimmed. Frustration was visible on his face as he wondered how many monsters he would have to defeat to significantly expand his domain. Despite his new powers, hunger gnawed at him. Hoping to ease his discomfort, he ventured into the forest to gather mushrooms. As he wandered, he noticed a group of young boys chasing a small puppy. The frightened dog dashed ahead, looking back in panic. "These kids have been chasing me for 10 miles, the puppy seemed to think. "Don't they ever get tired?" The dog bolted away from the young man, its mind racing. Is this guy the Dark Demon King? It wondered. If not for the cauldron from the heavens injuring it earlier, the dog thought, it would have devoured all those kids in one swift move. Burning with hatred, it spotted an abandoned manor ahead and decided it might be a good place to hide. Meanwhile, the young man had managed to gather only a meager handful of mushrooms after half a day of foraging. He sighed in regret, wishing he had even a scrap of meat to make a proper meal. Instead, he had to settle for a thin mushroom soup. It was better than nothing. Hiding behind the bushes, the dog noticed the young man. It sniffed the air and detected no spiritual energy around him, concluding that he was just an ordinary human. The dog, starving and desperate for strength, decided it could steal the young man's soup. With a leap, it pounced, growling, "Hand over your soup and your life." However, as the dog sprang forward, it noticed something odd. The young man's eyes gleamed with a strange light. The man looked at the dog and thought, in an instant, the young man forgot all about his soup. Driven by hunger, he resolved to take down the dog instead. The dog was caught completely off guard. It hadn't expected this supposed weakling to fight back. The young man struck the dog midair, slamming it against a rock. The dog, dazed and confused, wondered what weapon the man had used. It felt as though a mountain had hit it. Could this human possess some kind of treasure? To its astonishment, the lump forming on its forehead revealed the truth. The man had hit it with a simple soup spoon. The young man decided to intimidate the dog further. "I am the great Dark Demon King," he declared, his eyes glowing like a true demon's. The dog, already humiliated by being knocked out with a spoon, was truly shaken. It silently prayed that no one would ever find out about this embarrassing defeat. Just then, a group of young people came running, shouting that the dog was a demon they had been chasing for a long time. The dog lay unconscious, sprawled on the ground. The young man, puzzled, asked the group what was going on. One of the girls, brandishing her sword, pointed it at him and demanded, "Who are you? And how dare you steal our prey?" Realizing they were referring to the dog, the young man stepped closer, testing the range of his sword's invincible barrier. When the group decided to attack, they were quickly overwhelmed. Watching the young man's skill, they retreated, unsure of what to make of his abilities. Little did they know, his strength only worked within the range of his sword's domain. Still, even armed with just a spoon, he was formidable. One of the attackers exclaimed in disbelief, "How can someone use anything as a weapon? That's impossible." The young man smirked, thinking this must be the legendary state of his system's abilities. The others, still astonished, muttered among themselves about encountering such a powerful master living in seclusion. The girl turned to her older brother, Donan, and asked, "What's going on here?" Meanwhile, the young man grumbled about his spilled soup. At least some of it remained in the bowl, and he crawled over to salvage it, feeling a small wave of relief. As the group continued to marvel at his abilities, the young man was baffled by their surprise. He asked, "So, you're all here for the dog? You want to rescue it?" The group explained that the dog was no ordinary animal but a strong demonic beast. If it weren't so powerful, it wouldn't have escaped us for this long. The young man noticed a faint trace of sword chi flowing through the bodies of the group before him. They must be cultivators, he thought. I wonder where they came from. Curious, he asked them who they were. The group introduced themselves as disciples of the Sacred Ball Sect and respectfully greeted him as Young Master. The young man was momentarily surprised by their politeness. They even introduced two sisters from their sect, who also greeted him with a bow. One of the girls stepped forward, giving her name, and hastily apologized in advance, saying she hoped she hadn't offended him with her words. despite not having said much at all. The young man waved it off and commented that rushing out so boldly to deal with a demon dog in such a situation wasn't wise. He mentioned they were right to pursue the dog, but should tread more carefully in emergencies. Our hero, however, was puzzled. Why are they apologizing to me so quickly? He wondered. Have they mistaken me for someone else? Still, he thought it wasn't so bad communicating with sword cultivators. They seemed straightforward. Looking back at the dog, the young man suspected it wasn't an ordinary demon beast. The group, perhaps sensing his thoughts, clarified that they had no further claim on the dog and apologized for disturbing him. Before leaving, they even asked if they could visit him again in the future. The young man smirked inwardly. Their quick retreat only confirmed their fear of his assumed wizardly strength. As the group prepared to leave, he called after them, stopping them in their tracks. The young cultivators froze, beads of cold sweat forming on their faces. They slowly turned back, fearful of what he might say next. The young man reassured them, explaining that the dog wouldn't have come his way if they hadn't chased it in the first place. I have no interest in taking someone else's prey, he added. To ease the tension, he handed them a small wooden toy he had carved himself as a gift. Grateful and visibly relieved, the group thanked him profusely. The young man then warned them to be cautious as they traveled back. Once alone again, the young man turned his attention to the dog, already imagining the meal he would prepare. Tonight, I'll enjoy some roast dog, he thought with anticipation. However, his thoughts were interrupted by a sudden disturbance in the sky. A massive bird descended, carrying a giant cauldron. The divine bird, known as the Heavenly Rook Emperor, had finally acquired a divine artifact and intended to refine its divine body to make the entire world tremble at its feet. As the bird descended to rest near the ruined estate, it noticed the young man. The bird, initially enraged, thought, how dare this mere mortal deal with the Dark Demon King? It had mistaken the dog for the infamous Dark Demon King, now recovering from a humiliating injury. A blow from a soup spoon. The bird prepared to attack the young man for what it saw as disrespect toward a demon king. But as it landed nearby, carrying its enormous cauldron, the young man noticed the commotion. What's going on now? He wondered, seeing the gigantic bird and its burden. As the bird landed heavily near the estate, the young man stepped closer to investigate. The system quickly informed him of the situation. The bird was a 7th-rank demon emperor, and it appeared unwilling to part with the cauldron despite its weight. Analyzing further, the young man deduced that the bird had inadvertently flown into the range of his sword's protective domain. Some unseen defense mechanism had activated, and even a mighty demon emperor could not survive the attack. Just how powerful is this system's defense? He thought, marveling at the outcome. Shrugging, he decided not to overthink it. What had happened? He didn't need to search for the cauldron anymore. It had come to him. As for dinner, he figured the roast dog could wait. Tonight, he would enjoy a hearty stew of divine poultry with mushrooms. Meanwhile, the dog, regaining some consciousness, promptly fell back asleep, needing rest to recover its strength. When the dog woke up, it felt a throbbing headache, and the memory of being knocked out by a soup spoon came flooding back. That bloodthirsty cook, the dog thought bitterly. I have to deal with him. Looking around, the dog spotted the bird lying motionless and approached it cautiously. Your Highness, the dog whispered, but there was no response. Realization struck when the dog noticed it had been addressing the bird's severed head. Shifting its gaze, the dog saw the young man by the cauldron, casually stirring something over the fire. When the young man turned and locked eyes with the dog, a chill ran down its spine. The dog's horror deepened as it pieced together the truth. The demon emperor had been turned into soup. The dog was so overwhelmed that it toppled off the pedestal it was standing on, landing upside down on the ground. The world felt inverted as the gravity of the situation hit. It was terrifying. The once mighty demon emperor, now reduced to mere soup, left the dog trembling with fear. Its attention shifted to the cauldron. Wait, that's the divine cauldron. The dog realized, recognizing the artifact that had fallen from the sky and injured it earlier. It couldn't believe the young man was casually using such a sacred item to make soup. The dog's thoughts spiraled. This guy isn't just insane. He's incredibly dangerous and powerful. He must be some secret cultivator hiding away in this manner. A chilling thought struck the dog. What if I'm next? Fear coursed through it as it imagined the young man preparing to cook it. The young man, meanwhile, approached the dog, knife in hand. Strange, he mused. Why does this demonic beast look so nervous? Could it be intelligent? He set the thought aside. Doesn't matter. The important thing is, it looks delicious. The dog's panic peaked as the young man stepped closer. Stay away, the dog yelled in desperation. I'm unpalatable. A wolf should never be cornered. But the young man's eyes gleamed ominously, and the dog, trembling with fear, broke into a cold sweat. its fur soaked with terror. "Please," the dog begged, its voice trembling. "Don't eat me. I don't want to die. I haven't even seen all the wonders of this world yet." The young man paused, realizing the dog was pleading for its life. Interesting, he thought, amused by the dog's antics. With a sly smile, the young man said, "Fine, I won't eat you, but on one condition. This place needs a guard dog. If you agree to protect my estate, you can stay." The dog froze, conflicted. It had narrowly escaped death, but at what cost? Me, the mighty demon king, reduced to a human's pet? How is this even possible? The young man thought that since the dog was staying here, they should feed him. A bone flew under the dog's feet. The dog believed it was the demon emperor's bone. There was even some meat left on it. It was deeply humiliating. The dog wondered if the young man wanted him to eat his majesty. He was clearly overdoing it. The young man seemed eager for it. The dog thought, so be it. After all, he's just a watchdog. And it's better than being a fried dog. The dog apologized to his majesty and began to chew on the bone tasted delicious. All was calm in the heavenly realm. Everything was running smoothly and on schedule. The young men returned to their sect. They had something important to report to the elder. The young man decided to approach his mentor. He should have told him about the stranger. The elder asked why the young man had returned. The young man explained that, by the elder's order, they went to Mount Shawan to find the divine artifact. They didn't locate the artifact, but they encountered a formidable expert who had achieved the state of using anything as a weapon, and this expert could assist them in dealing with the blood demon. The elder wondered how it was possible to use anything as a weapon. And anyway, this mountain is full of demonic beasts. How could a human survive on it? The elder wondered if there was someone living on this mountain. They would have surely known about it. After all, he was a cultivator at the discernment stage. The young man began to make excuses. He would never dare to deceive an elder. But there were witnesses. The elder sighed. Then he had missed something. The elder explained that their sect was over 10,000 years old. During that time, only 3 people had been able to comprehend the will of the weapon and use anything as a weapon. Even the ancestor couldn't achieve that. A girl spoke up for the young man and said they had sensed his divine sword will. The elder stated that all 3 young men were in the body-hardening stage. That's why everything seemed strong to them to reach. The elder said that the young men had most likely been deceived by some trick. After all, they had never seen the will of the weapon before. If such a weapon expert had lived on the mountain, everyone would have known about him long ago. The elder told the young man to take the students and go as far away as possible and never return. He added that the blood demon seal was weakening by the minute. They could no longer maintain it. Young people are still very inexperienced, and I'll die alongside the old, the elder said. The disciples asked, "What about their mentor?" The elder replied, "When the blood demon breaks the seal, he and the elders will fight the demon to the death to prevent it from escaping." The old man added that they were running out of time. The demon's threat was something people believed they could stop, but they were sorely mistaken. The elder told the other elders that they must act together. Only then could they hope to win. The elder suggested that everyone else engage in the holy sword formation. The old men amicably began, and the holy sword descended from heaven to earth. However, the sword couldn't handle the demon or fulfill its purpose. The elder grew weaker and ill. The demon attacked him, blood pouring from his mouth in response to the sword strike. The demon only laughed, mocking the elders. Did they truly believe they could harm him? The wounded elder noticed that the young men had returned to help him. The old man shouted for them to urgently run away and tell everyone that the blood demon had escaped. The blood demon rose and declared that no one could escape him. He called them scum of the holy sword and said he had decided to destroy humanity. With a massive fiery sword, the demon came crashing down upon them. People managed to flee as they ran, but the girl stumbled and dropped the wooden figurine given to her by the stranger. She noticed that the figurine's eyes lit up. It must have reacted to the demon's presence. The demon shouted loudly, and the figure rushed toward him. The demon declared it impossible. He couldn't die simply by breaking free from his imprisonment. The figure struck the demon and collapsed to the ground. The young men watched in fear, but curiosity drew their attention to the wooden figure. It modestly announced that the blood demon had died. The elder took the figurine in his arms and declared that from that day on, the figurine would become the treasure of their sect, and all disciples must worship it and strive to comprehend the will of the ball contained within. The elder gathered the disciples and told everyone to memorize his words. Everyone declared that they hadn't given up on their holy sword sect. It was all because of this treasure. The old man told the young men that they had returned with the treasure that helped defeat the blood demon. It would never be forgotten, and future generations would honor it. The master asked the young men to tell him more about the master they had met on Mount Shiwan. The young man recounted the entire truth, openly and without concealment. about how they had encountered the great master on the mountain. After the story, the elder was indignant. Is this figurine made of ordinary wood? The sword's will within it killed the blood demon. The old man kept repeating that it was all unbelievable and terrifying. How powerful this young man was? He possessed the stage of liberation, or perhaps even divinity. The teacher explained that spiritual energy in the world was no longer as abundant as before. Not everyone could reach the stage of liberation, and reaching the stage of divinity was impossible for most. The elder decided that he should go himself and verify it. He chose to take the vermilion divine sword and the sacred earth with him, and asked to be led to the young man asked if the elder truly wanted to give away the sect's treasures, the vermilion divine sword and the sacred earth, to someone he didn't know. Those treasures had been brought to the sect by their ancestors from the immortal realm. The elder was outraged, saying it was just a wooden figurine, and yet he was being asked to visit the master's house empty-handed. The treasure of their sect wasn't worth a speck of dust in this young man's eyes. The old man thought that honest labor would never compare to flattery and deceit, which seemed to be the only sure path to success. The elder, on the way, reflected that he would soon be able to impress the master, who would teach them a few techniques or the secrets of ball cultivation. The master had assured them that this would allow the Holy Sword sect to become the strongest sect for centuries to come. The students believed that their teacher, as always, was open and honest. He had thought of everything in advance. A young man was vacationing at his estate, enjoying time with his dog. The young man kicked his dog and told him he was a watchdog, so he shouldn't sleep all day. After all, he hadn't spared him for nothing. The dog thought to himself that he used to be the demon king, and everyone once feared him as the strongest on that mountain. Now, however, he was being treated like a yard dog. The dog felt deeply depressed, barking. He thought the young man was unfair and greatly oppressed him. The young man looked at his dog and wondered what kind of dog it truly was. Even though he could dig, he decided the dog could help plow the yard, and they could plant something there. The dog begged for help, screaming that the demon king needed saving. At that moment, a young girl named Yulan flew by. She realized she had expended too much spiritual energy and would be caught if she didn't replenish it. Surprised to find an estate in this remote wilderness of the south, she decided to land. The young lady saw a man and thought he couldn't be an ordinary person if he lived secluded in the endless, lifeless mountains. She asked the young man for help, flying directly to him. The young man noticed she was acting cautiously. He appeared much younger than she expected and had no discernible aura. Could he truly be ordinary, even if it wasn't the will of the sword? He wasn't as simple as he seemed. The stranger had heard tales of old monsters pretending to be innocent. The girl apologized for invading his territory and explained she had no choice. The young man wondered why everyone who arrived called him elder, when he certainly didn't appear old. He asked the girl what she wanted, noticing she wasn't angry. Suddenly, young people came from all directions, and a terrible monster appeared. The girl knelt before the young man, frightened, and explained that the Guangling sect had conspired with demons to capture her and give her as a concubine to the demon king. Her father had refused, but they had attacked her entire family. She was the only one who managed to escape and now begged for his help. The young man was very surprised. After all, this was a righteous sect. Why would they do something like this? He thought the cultivator world was full of strife, but he didn't want to make decisions based on only one side of the story. Though he was invincible within his mansion, he didn't want others to use him. The young man hesitated as he looked at the girl, whose eyes were pleading for help. She said that if the elder didn't save her, they would definitely kill her, or something worse. The young man reassured her that unless he allowed it, no one could take her away. He decided to figure out what kind of people were after her. Threateningly, he asked why they were there. The dog growled, and the girl hid behind his back. The young man told his elder brother that the girl's spiritual power was severely depleted, so they shouldn't capture her just yet. The older brother scoffed and told him to shut up. Did he really think anyone could come to this place? There were many hidden masters in the world, and this young man might be one of them. They weren't particularly strong, and if he became a master in a few years, they might die before realizing what had happened. The young man noticed the border between the demon world and the cultivator world passed through this very place. Could someone be hiding here? The young man didn't look like a master, nor did the dog look like an ordinary one. The older pursuer introduced himself and declared they were pursuing a traitor. The young man shouldn't believe a word the liar said. The young man stated that the girl had started cultivating demonic techniques, sacrificed her entire family, and killed many of their students. Now, she was trying to deceive him. He claimed he knew her true identity. They just wanted to grab her. The girl lashed out at her pursuers, saying they were shamelessly lying. These people were collaborating with demons and planned to send her to the demon king. With tears in her eyes, she explained that her father had tried to stop them, but they had killed him and her entire family. The dog thought to himself that somewhere out there, a demon king loved human women. The young man listened to both sides and couldn't determine which was telling the truth, or what to do next. Then, an evil, terrifying demon and his entourage appeared. The demon demanded to know why they had taken so long and how much longer they could wait. He approached the young men chasing the girl and, with menace in his voice, asked why they hadn't captured her and delivered her to him. The young man began to stammer, pointing at the other pursuers. The demon grew angry, pushing the young man aside, and said the king's wedding had been delayed because of mere mortal cultivators, whom he dismissed as trash. The young men pressed themselves against the wall in fear, trembling at the sight of the demons. The pursuer thought that finally, the demon generals had taken action. The warriors of the bull tribe had strong bodies that no blades could pierce, and this young man was not to be envied right now. The demon figured if he took the girl, he might be rewarded with demon pills. He looked down at the young man with glaring eyes. The young man smiled calmly at the large demon and said, "When you stop pretending." The girl, worried, clenched her fists, hoping for her savior. "These bulls are demon generals in the body-hardening stage," the young man said confidently. "I can handle them." He frowned, shaking his head. "I didn't think our righteous sect would ever work with demons." The dog watched the scene unfold, anticipating the show. The young man picked up a small twig from the ground. He was in his own territory. "Well, if that's the case," the young man said, "let them all attack. Let's not waste any time." The demon swung his menacing weapon at the young man, shouting, "You'll pay for this." The young man swiftly cut the demon into various pieces, as if slicing meat in a butcher's shop. In that instant, he thought it was essential to slice good meat properly. The other demons were shocked, as were the young men chasing the girl, and even the dog. The girl thought about the young man. To him, even a small branch was enough to kill a demon general in one blow. What terrifying sword power, she thought. The young man, analyzing the situation, guessed he must be at least at the soul-budding stage, or even transforming into a god. The dog watched the butchered demon and recalled how he had felt the day he arrived at this farm. The system announced to the young man that he had received 800 points for eliminating the demon general. "Better than nothing," the young man muttered, taking the twig and asking, "Who's next?" The remaining young men, frightened, decided he was no wolf, but a real tiger. Crying uncontrollably, they fled. Terrified, they realized that this man wasn't one to be trifled with. The young man tearfully said they were misunderstood. "That's not who we are." But the demons scattered, fleeing to tell their king about the incident. The young man asked, "Why are you leaving already? Wouldn't you stay for dessert?" He began slicing the air with his twig, creating a distinctive sound as he moved his sword. The demons shrank back, stopping in fear. The young man asked, "Exactly what did you misunderstand?" His voice, now cold, remained unanswered as the demon crawled on his knees, mumbling incoherently. Our hero waved his twig and said, "Let's call it a day." But at the last moment he thought, "If I kill him, how will the Guangling sect and the Demon King know about what happened here? And if they don't know, how will they come here to seek revenge? I won't gain much experience that way." The dog thought it was time to finish the liar off. But the young man decided he should keep him alive and let him deliver a message to his sect and the Demon King. Yulan was under his protection. The girl blossomed with happiness. The young man continued, "As long as I'm alive, no one will be able to harm you." The dog didn't expect such mercy. Why not tear him to death and cut him into pieces? The young man could barely believe that the demon was still alive, tears and snot streaming down his face. The young man said, "Now, all free people can leave here. The sooner, the better." Our hero collapsed to the ground, coughing up blood. No one expected this. The girl rushed to the young man in fright, asking what had happened to him. The young man reassured her, saying, "I'm fine, just a small injury." He asked the girl to take him to the manor. The dog thought the young man was faking it, wondering why he would pretend. The young man, who had almost died, looked at the fallen demon with cold indifference. He wondered if the guy was at the end of his rope. Alarmed by the terrifying intentions of the young man's sword, he couldn't understand why no one knew about him. Something was definitely off. The young man decided to return to his sect, informing his mentor of the incident. He vowed to take revenge, both on the demon and on those who had humiliated him. The girl would be targeted as well. Soon Yulan helped the young man to the manor. It was hard for him to move alone. The young man smiled, claiming he was feeling much better. The girl couldn't believe it. The dog thought, "What a shameless guy, pretending to be strong after nearly dying." Soon Yulan asked, wondering if the young master truly felt better. The young man assured her he did. The girl relaxed, believing he was recovering. She warned the young man that the demon sect wouldn't leave them alone. The young man thought, That's what I need. Rumors circulated that several elders of the Guangling sect were at the soul-nurturing stage, or even beyond, at the stage of transcending their physical forms. The Demon King desired this girl for himself. She told the young man that he had saved her life, and if he ever found himself in danger because of her, she would stand by him. The young man assured her, "As long as you stay here in this estate, no one in the world can harm you. I will protect you." The girl looked at him as if he were her elder. Soon Yulin knelt before the young man, expressing her gratitude for his kindness and asking to become his disciple, pledging to serve him in the future. The young man was surprised by what he heard. Though invincible within his sword territory, he realized he had no cultivation. He had nothing to teach this girl. Hesitantly, he said he wasn't accepting disciples at the moment. The system notified him that a new mission had been detected. Protect Sun Yulan's body. Earn a special reward. The girl, sympathetic to his rejection, thought she wasn't worthy of someone as powerful as him. "We're neither relatives nor friends," she reasoned. The young man stepped closer, took her by the shoulder, and said he was willing to make an exception. From that day on, she would be his student. The young lady couldn't believe her good fortune. The young man motioned for her not to call him elder anymore. It was time to change how she addressed him. The girl looked at the young man with admiration, realizing she would become the disciple of such a great master. Yulan was ashamed that her mentor was willing to risk his life for her, and she couldn't repay the favor. However, she vowed she would have the chance to avenge her family. Sun Yulan kneeled and said, "Disciple greeting the mentor." The system scanned the girl and confirmed that the body of the Tao sword, a divine innate body containing the K of the golden heavenly stem, had been identified. The system repeated that the young man would receive a special reward after accepting this body as his disciple. The young man thought it was an easy assignment. The system announced that the task was complete and the reward was an instruction in the intent of the sword. The young man thought that, within his territory, his Abal energy wasn't infinite. He decided to see how it really worked. The young man ran his fingers like a sword against a tree. His fingers sliced through the wood like butter. Yulan watched in delight. "How is this possible?" she asked, astonished. The dry tree instantly blossomed and was covered with leaves. The dog barked with joy, proud of his master. The dog felt a strong life essence. Her injuries were healing at a rapid pace. The young man thought it was unheard of in the entire world. Yulan, wide-eyed, decided her master must be an immortal. The young man looked around at the tree, realizing that a light infusion of sword chi could only do so much. The soil here wasn't nourishing enough for proper growth, so he decided to revitalize all the vegetation in the estate. Half a day passed. Yulan followed the young man, while the dog ran ahead. The young man asked Yulan if she knew why he had taken her as an apprentice. Yulan responded, "I'm too stupid to understand my mentor's deep thoughts. But if you wanted me, I wouldn't mind, even if it's all happening too fast." The young man sighed, a tinge of sadness in his voice. "The continent is vast. From time to time, heaven's chosen ones appear, some with special physiques or bloodlines, others empowered through chance encounters. To make the stars of the immortal cultivation world shine, the strongest are increasingly chosen to leave and seek greater strength. What type of girl do you think you are?" Yulan hesitated, but the young man continued, "That's the wrong answer. It applies to both types." The dog, "Does this girl have a special physique? It shouldn't be like this, and why can't I recognize it, even with the powers of a demon king?" Yulan asked, "Mentor, do you believe I have some special physique?" The young man replied, "That's right, you have a special physique. Maybe that's why the demon king has his eye on you." The dog thought it was impossible. Physiques were divided into unfit mortal, spiritual specific, other divine bodies, and dawn level, or even the dog had a specific physique. Could it be that this young girl had the physique of a top-tier Tao body? Yulan realized why the Sect and the Demon King wanted to kidnap her, because she had the body of a Tao sword. The young man said that if the Sect and the Demon King had realized it, they wouldn't have sent just a few demon generals to capture her. Yulan said that since childhood, she had not shown any talent, so she couldn't be the chosen one. The young man replied that the Tao sword body was different from other physiques. Only after awakening could a person show an incomparable rate of development. After that, all the 8 great sects would try to take her for themselves. Yulan's thoughts turned bitter, remembering what had become of her family. It wasn't anyone's fault, but she felt hate burning in her eyes. She asked her mentor to help her awaken her Tao sword body. Her gaze was determined. The girl was consumed by thoughts of revenge. The young man said that before awakening her Tao sword body, Yulan should first feel his sword intent. At the southern wild ancient terrain, Yulan showed her mentor the spot where they had seen the young man with the dog. The place appeared ordinary to the old man, who couldn't fathom that an expert would live secluded in such a location. The elder and his disciples decided to land in this estate. Looking at the estate, the teacher thought, "What a dense life essence." Yulan added that there had been no such thing during their last visit. The young man was delighted. He had never seen such an abundance of spiritual energy. It felt as if there was no end to the supply. The disciple compared being here to being in an ocean of spiritual energy. Every inch of her skin felt it. This spiritual energy could be sensed in every strand of her hair, and even her breath was enveloped by an endless supply of life essence. The dog started barking. They had visitors again. This estate was gaining popularity, and it was all because of its owner. The apprentice reported to his master that it was the same dog they had been chasing. It seemed the young man had decided to take it in. The elder looked at the dog and thought it was some kind of unintelligent beast. His face changed as he pointed at the dog and shouted, "It's a demon dog." The dog looked at the newcomers. The aliens recognized the dog as a demon king. The old man was terrified. He didn't understand why the demon king was here, what he was doing here, or what had happened to the young man. The old man trembled with fear. He realized the demon king had discovered them, and he had a terrible feeling that they were about to be attacked. The dog decided that the old man had some awareness. He understood how powerful the dog was. The old man, panicking, decided to show what he could do to make himself appear powerful. The dog barked loudly, signaling that he was waiting for these intruders. The young man grew angry at his dog. He told it to stop barking, explaining that Yulan was trying to comprehend the intent of the sword and the dog was interfering. The dog refused to stop barking, continuing to raise a commotion. The young man soon realized why. He had visitors again. It was the same group of young men, now accompanied by an old man. The young man wondered who this old man was and why he had come. The elder looked astonished. How was it possible for this young man to treat the demon king like a mere watchdog? How powerful must he be? He had to be at least at the tribulation crossing stage. The old man couldn't believe there were such powerful yet seemingly naive individuals in the world. Yulan introduced her elder to the young man, explaining that he was the mentor and current head of the Holy Sword Sect. They had come to express their gratitude for the wooden figurine the young man had given them. The young man was surprised to be visited by the sect leader himself. The elder greeted the young man and apologized for the uninvited visit. The boy found it amusing. Now even the sect elder was calling him an elder, though it was clear he didn't look the part. Still, the young man chose to let it go. He gestured for the guest to approach, and they thanked him, once again apologizing for the intrusion. The old man realized he hadn't been wrong. This young man was clearly an influential figure, likely at the tribulation crossing stage. He needed to show respect. The old man continued to observe the young man and noticed he couldn't detect any fluctuations in his spiritual power. He concluded that the young man's cultivation level was likely too high for him to sense. The old man addressed the young man, asking if perhaps he had already reached the stage of returning to the basics. The boy smiled and replied, "Maybe." The elder found this difficult to comprehend. The young man, however, thought to himself that he had no cultivation, so there was no way he could be at that stage. Walking past Yulan, the young man reminded her not to disturb his student, who was currently focusing on comprehending the sword intent. The guests exchanged glances, remarking that this young man's demeanor rivaled those from the Promised Lands, deep within the mountain sanctuaries of the Celestials. The young man observed that the soil in this place was not fertile. The elder speculated that the statuette the young man had given Yulan earlier had solved their sex problems. That was why the old man had come, to offer his thanks and present a small gift. The young man was caught off guard by this. The gifts included some soil and a sword. The elder explained that the soil was divine fertile land, brought by an ancestor from the land of immortals. According to rumor, divine medicines could grow there. As for the sword, it was a red gold divine sword, a treasure of the Saint Sword Sect. The young man couldn't believe it. Why was this old man giving him such valuable gifts? Was he expected to offer his patronage? However, he couldn't leave the manor just yet. The old man asked if the young man didn't like the gifts, saying they were the best the sect had to offer. He once again called the young man an elder and urged him to accept them as a sign of respect. The young man, examining the soil, thought it resembled a complex fertilizer. It must indeed be highly fertile. The old man stated that he wanted to personally present the soil to the young man, hoping he might cultivate something with it. The young man decided that the soil could be useful for growing vegetables, so he would set up a vegetable garden. The sect master was surprised to see how this expert planned to use divine soil in such a manner, but he didn't say anything. After all, the young man had accepted the gift, and that was what mattered to him. The young man extended an invitation to the elder for dinner as a gesture of thanks. After all, he had recently hunted several demonic bulls and was boiling their meat for the meal. The elder gladly accepted the offer, hoping to build a connection with such a promising young man. The young man moved closer to the cauldron, the smell of the boiling beef wafting through the air. The elder observed him and noticed something unusual. This wasn't just any cauldron but a tripod, a divine artifact. The elder was astonished. Was this the same tripod that had fallen from the sky? The one that all the sects of the world were searching for? The young man, noticing the old man's difficulty, told him to step aside, saying he would carry the cauldron himself. The elder explained to his disciples what the cauldron truly was, emphasizing its divine origin. He admitted that the recent sky-bursting incident was likely connected to this young man. The disciples quickly concluded that the young man's cultivation must be at least at the earth immortal stage. The elder agreed, saying this wasn't hard to believe, given the extraordinary energy radiating from this estate. Yulan, seeing the young man before her, realized how fortunate they were not to have provoked him earlier. Any hostility would have brought disastrous consequences. The young elder announced that dinner was ready and invited everyone to the table. The old man hesitated but eventually accepted, unable to turn down such an offer. The guests marveled at the young man's culinary skills. The elder, feeling the abundance of spiritual energy in the food, was deeply satisfied. Yulan was mesmerized by the flavor, while one of the disciples said the taste made her feel as though she were floating in a meadow among grazing cows. Everyone was thrilled by the meals. After dinner, the old man thanked his host for his hospitality and said he wouldn't dare disturb him any further. The young man invited them to visit again, to which the elder promised they would return. The old man couldn't help but reflect on the breakthrough he felt. He realized, without even noticing, that he had advanced to the divine transformation stage. One of his disciples pointed this out, and the elder explained that the estate's overflowing spiritual energy, along with the refining power of the divine cauldron, had contributed to his advancement. After the meal, the young man began preparing to make full use of the donated soil. With this fertile land, he thought, he could grow a variety of fruits and crops with ease. After a while, the man noticed a glowing fruit on the tree. It was incredible. The young man thought it was a ginung fruit. The man saw something unexpected and wondered where it had come from. The dog thought it was a ghost and started barking loudly to scare it away. Julian also saw the ghost and was surprised. It had taken on a human form. The man concluded that it was because of the added fertilizer. The tree was turning into a spirit. The girl assumed it wasn't turning into a spirit. It was absorbing immortal energy. She put forward her theory. If a ghost absorbs chi and takes on the guise of a person under an old tree, it becomes a spirit. But if it absorbs immortal energy, it becomes an immortal spirit. The dog continued to bark relentlessly. The young man thought that when trees absorb chi energy and turn into spirits, their life force becomes visible to the world. Everyone saw that it was an incredibly strong kui. People couldn't understand what was happening. It was an abundant life force. Could it be that the tree had turned into a spirit? How strong must that spirit be if its aura was so vivid? All who witnessed this event decided that this life force was as immense as the ocean itself. The old man, who had seen it all, knew there was a reason behind it. He thought that the expert who caused this was definitely not a simple mortal. Everyone decided to investigate, heading toward the green man. The young elder, his apprentice, and the loyal dog rushed toward the figure standing near the tree. The man who appeared said that he had been blessed by the immortals, his body and soul now one. From now on, he had entered the path of an immortal, taking on the duty of guarding the estate. The young man said he didn't have a name yet and asked his host to give him one. Our hero decided to come up with a name for this new character. The young man claimed that he was born from the Ginyang fruit and had become an immortal spirit. It was his good fortune that allowed him to become the favorite of the great Tao of the manor. Based on these factors, the man decided to call him Xuan. Jinan thanked the master for giving him the name and said he would do his best to protect the estate. Our hero was glad the young man liked his new name. The man said he was assigning Jinan to guard the estate from now on. The young man decided that the fertilizer had turned out to be quite effective. Julian was amazed at her master's incredible strength, since he had been able to turn an ancient tree into a celestial mortal. She considered it a monumental feat. The demon clan and the human clan had decided to stand uniting to achieve a common goal. Both clans moved toward our hero's manor to avenge the damage done, the honor that had been violated, and to seek justice. The human clan master suspected something was wrong. He could feel the overpowering energy of the immortal spirit, and it frightened him. The demon clan leader laughed in response, unbothered by anything. The beast said that the mountain belonged to the demons, and as long as he was there, no one would dare to touch it. People murmured that it was true, His Majesty had incredible power and might, and no one could challenge their right to claim this small estate. The estate remained quiet and peaceful. The girl meditated, and the dog continued digging another hole. The young man was resting and regaining his strength. There was no sign of trouble. The young man turned his attention to the visitors. He hadn't expected them to arrive so quickly. The effort he had put into preparing had clearly paid off. A group of assailants had positioned themselves at the edge of the estate. A dog came running toward them. The man thought that this demonic dog looked quite strong and even intimidating. The dog lay there, with keen eyes, assessing all who had come, demons and humans alike. It had a demonic aura that couldn't be ignored. The demon sniffed and realized that the young man's technique was truly exceptional. He could absorb spiritual energy without even practicing. The demon concluded that he should definitely seek the young man's cultivation method. The man stated that he didn't expect to meet such an extraordinary dog in this wilderness. The young man added that the dog was undoubtedly an incredibly powerful demon. If they could make this dog their spirit beast, it would prove useful in the future. They asked if the dog would agree to become the spiritual beast of their sect's guardian. The demon turned to the dog and asked how a demon could serve a human. He inquired if the dog was ready to accept him as his master and become the right hand of the Demon King. Did the dog truly want to make him his assistant? The Demon King claimed that if the dog agreed, he would grant him dominion over these lands. The Demon King stroked the dog's head and added that the dog would become the ruler of these domains. The dog started barking at the demon, questioning who he thought he was. Why did he think he was so great? The demon didn't know where he was, nor how he dared to appear here. The demon stated that dogs didn't change their behavior. He insisted that the dog was merely a human's guardian, and perhaps his offer wasn't appealing enough for the dog. The demon said he was a demon and urged the dog to bow to him and join his side. The Demon King claimed that a disgrace like this dog must die. He swung his weapon at the dog didn't tolerate such humiliation. He immediately lunged at the Demon King, using all his demonic power. Everyone who saw it was amazed. What was wrong with that dog? The demon said he didn't think a dog like that could pose any real threat. The dog replied that he wasn't at full strength yet, as his injuries hadn't fully healed. The dog warned the demon that he had greatly underestimated him. The demon examined the dog's aura and wondered how it was possible. How could a demon like this also be a king? The demon dog launched an attack on the demon bull. It was something extraordinary. A life-and-death battle erupted, with the two demons smashing everything around them as they fought each other. The people couldn't comprehend what was happening. They had never seen a battle like this before. Demons fighting demons. The man wondered where the Demon King had come from. No one had ever reported him. The young man thought the demon was just an ordinary clueless mongrel who didn't understand anything. The head of the human sect concluded that if the young man's estate was being guarded by the Demon King himself, then something wasn't right. A young elder appeared, accompanied by his apprentice. He said, "At last the guests have arrived." The girl recognized them, members of the Guanan sect elder and the Demon Bull King. The sect head looked at the young man and realized this was the same person his disciple had reported to him. But how could someone with no cultivation control a Demon King? The elder turned to the young man he admired. The disciples of their sect gathered around. The young man replied, "What is wrong with killing a bunch of ungrateful scum?" The disciples tried to argue, but the master interrupted them. He said that the young man was clearly trying to provoke them. At that moment, the demonic Bull King was cornered by the dog. The sect leader feared that their sect might fall today. The sect master never imagined this girl would find such a powerful patron and bring such trouble upon their heads. The man told the young elder that he saw great potential in the girl, since he had decided to take her under his wing. In the world of cultivation, strength was revered. The Guanlin sect chose to retreat. The man added that, in gratitude for his mercy, they would return tomorrow with gifts. The young man was astonished. Something had gone wrong. Wasn't this man supposed to attack him? The sect master said that he was thankful for the mercy shown, and they should all leave. Our hero told everyone to stop. The young man wondered, if they left, what would happen to his bull territory points that the system had promised him? The young man declared that Sun Yulan was his disciple, and the sect had conspired with demons to destroy her family. They had done a terrible thing to his disciple. The young man added that they had no right to leave as if nothing had happened. He couldn't let that happen. The elders stopped and realized they were in trouble. One of the disciples shouted that the young man was bluffing and that they should just kill him. Suddenly, the young man screamed. Behind his back, an elder stood with a naked sword. The young man fell dead. An elder with a fierce face and a bloody sword stood over his corpse. Our hero didn't understand anything. What was going on here? The sect master said it was true. They were planning to send the girl to the Demon King, But destroying her family wasn't what they had intended. It was the young man who had done it. Killing him would satisfy the young elder. The young man thought the sect master had lost his mind. The young elder and his apprentice were amazed at what had appeared before them. The young man thought the sect leader hadn't realized the power he possessed, but had already killed one of his subordinates and placed the blame on him. This man was truly inhuman. The disciples of this sect could not be considered righteous. The young man understood that this world was ruthless, but in this case, he was the hunter, and the sect master was his prey. He couldn't let it go unchallenged. The young man declared to the sect master that his empty words meant nothing, and one life could not atone for all the sins he had committed against his favorite student. The man began to make excuses. Isn't the death of this man enough? If this situation isn't resolved, there's no choice but to fight. An ordinary student isn't worth it. The sect master said the young man was right. The girl had recently become his student, and it was for her to decide whether to expect mercy from him. The young man told his student that her enemy now stood before her. He instructed her to destroy him. The girl was frightened. Their cultivation level was far beyond hers. The young man told her she had already learned something and should trust him. She would be fine. The young elder said the girl should go on the attack, for revenge was best done with her own hands. The young man declared that anyone who could defeat his apprentice would be guaranteed safety. The sect master thought that even if this girl had a supreme sword, she wasn't even at the golden core stage. The man said if the young man was sure, he was fine with it. The young man told Yulan to attack. The girl didn't know how to go about it since she knew nothing at all. Summoning her courage, she drew her sword and told the Guanlin sect that she would not let them escape from the Sun family's blood feud. The sect master scoffed, saying the girl was very shameless. After all, she was just a simple girl. She was lucky to have a patron. The master verbally threatened the girl and turned to his assistant, offering to fight the girl himself, just in case the sect master decided to intervene. The girl didn't care who she fought first. She was waiting for her opponent. The young man adopted a fighting stance and told her she might not expect to win, as he was serious. The young man noticed that the girl was holding a divine sword. Julan swung her sword a few times to demonstrate her speed. She said the young man was talking nonsense. In an instant, the young man fell, struck down by the young lady. The young elder turned to the system and saw he had been awarded 400 points of bull territory. The opponents were shocked by what they witnessed and how quickly the fight had turned. The young man was glad that the points his apprentice earned from defeating the opponents were counted by the system. That wasn't a bad thing. The girl was also surprised by her results. The sect master said her bull skills were truly impressive. The man added that she hadn't even reached the golden core stage yet. The sect master sent another warrior to deal with the girl, but he told him to keep her alive. The young man thought, though he had sworn not to interfere in the duel, he would be able to avenge his student's murder later. The sect master cursed the young man. He thought his sect had never been subjected to such humiliation. So, he decided they would seek revenge, but first, there had to be a way out of the situation. Their opponent screamed that she would cut off both her hands, and everyone would know if her master wanted to continue fighting them over her. The girls engaged in a fierce battle. Sparks from their swords flew in all directions. No one was willing to back down. Women's combat was something special, especially with swords. Julian displayed excellent martial arts, surprising her opponent. The sect disciple pointed out that Julian was indeed skilled, but that wasn't enough to defeat her. Fear flashed in the girl's eyes as she felt the monstrous intent of her rival's sword. Where did she get such power from? The girl felt the pressure of the bull's intent and realized her body couldn't move. Julian quickly swept her sword near her opponent's neck. The girl didn't realize what happened. The sword fell from her hands, and she sank to her knees, blood streaming down her body. It was the end. Everyone who watched the fight was amazed. How could it be possible? Everyone stared in mute silence, their faces frozen with disbelief. The girl thought she had actually managed to defeat someone at the soul nucleation stage. But why did she feel like she was frozen in fear? Julan wondered if perhaps her mentor had been helping her. The young man was pleased. The system had awarded another 3,000 points to the bull territory. Life began to improve. The girl was deeply touched by her master's attention. Julan was overjoyed by her victory. She drew her sword toward her opponents and asked, "Who's next?" The opponents couldn't comprehend what had just happened. No one else wanted to face this girl. They had a sneaking suspicion that the young man might have secretly been helping her. But the sect master objected. He hadn't seen any movement from her mentor, so he sent another of his disciples to fight the girl. He declared that she could not be spared. Another opponent, Julan, entered the duel with a fierce shout. The young man, looking at the previous victim, thought he was weaker than her, and his chances were slimmer. The sect master shouted encouragement, telling Julan not to give up. Julan remembered how she had defeated her rival moments ago. She decided she would do the same to this new opponent. Meanwhile, in the woods, there was a loud explosion. The demonic bull fought the dog. He couldn't understand why the dog was protecting the man. He was the demon king. The dog replied, "I don't understand anything. I'm just adapting to the situation." The demonic bull declared that, on behalf of the entire demonic race, he would destroy the vile dog. The dog, however, was much faster than the bull, who had no chance of catching up with the swift animal. The demonic bull grew beyond furious. He had already prepared his fist to strike. The dog sensed the bull's overconfidence. His eyes flashed with demonic fire. The beasts entered the domain of the dark night. A demonic wolf howled. The demonic bull didn't understand what was happening. Why had the dark knight's domain appeared? The dog, covered in blood, licked his paws and said, "The weakling wanted to kill me?" The demonic bull was terrified. It turned out this dog was the king of the demonic dark night. Finally, the man understood everything. The bull couldn't calm down. He shouted, "Who would have thought the demon king of the dark night would serve a human?" The bull called the dog a pathetic mongrel and attacked. The dog, who had been farming for little over 100 years, opened his huge mouth, revealing his horrible fangs. "The bull knows nothing," the dog said. The bull furiously charged at the dog. The collision was inevitable. The dog, using all his demonic powers, inflicted a terrible wound on the bull. The bull's arm was injured. The dog was hurt as well. He said if he hadn't been injured, he wouldn't have had any trouble dealing with that bull. The bull screamed in pain, his arm injured very badly. The dog added that, unfortunately, the demon emperor Tianping, who could have punished the bull, had died. The dog said they would all die if they continued causing trouble for his master and his apprentice. The bull scoffed, asking if that was really a reason to serve a human's tame dog. The dog had always attacked demons for doing just that. The bull added that the dog had a chance to change if she helped defeat the bull, take the tripod, and the girl away from him. Otherwise, the entire southern area would know of this dog's criminal treachery. After that, all the demonic beasts would exclude the dog from the demonic race. The dog flashed his eyes. At first, he thought of letting the bull go, but now he said he had other plans. The bull must answer for the insult because no good demons like that bull deserve to live. Julan continued to destroy the enemies one by one. The demons had already been consumed. The girl grew more excited. Another enemy was defeated with a swift sword movement. She looked into the eyes of the Sect master and said it was his turn. There were only a few competitors left. The girl asked who was next. The Sect elder nominated another candidate to fight the girl and told him not to be afraid because they had already studied how she operated. There was an assumption that this girl had realized the terrifying sword intent. Despite her low cultivation level, she could knock a person's mind and body out of balance by spreading her sword intent. The Sect master said her sword technique was imperfect. He advised his colleague to burn his soul and fight the girl with all his might. The man was sure the young man wouldn't leave his student to die. Together they would attack, and he wouldn't be able to withstand a double attack at the divine formation level. The man said the girl had called the young man her mentor, so he was even stronger than she was. It would be even more dangerous to fight with him. The Sect master shouted, wondering if the young man had a different plan, because this was their only chance and they must survive. The man stopped resisting and said he understood. The warrior entered the arena and offered the girl to fight him. The girl said she was ready. Julan noticed that this opponent was much stronger than his predecessors, with new techniques. She assumed this was the stage of divine transformation, and that this man was much stronger than the soul-building stage. The man screamed and called out to the elder. The warrior was surprised the elder had retreated from the battlefield so quickly. He must have had business to attend to in the sect. The elder commanded an explosion. He must have had some plan. At first, the warrior didn't notice that the elder had placed a soul-burning talisman on his back. The warrior was like a time bomb. He realized what was about to happen, but there was no way to avoid it. Julan and the young man didn't understand what was happening. The Sect master shouted for only ashes to remain of them. The young elder remembered that he had Jen, so he called out to him. Jen dealt with the fatty and dragged him to safety, where the man calmly exploded. The young man said the problem was solved and thanked Jen for his excellent work. The Sect master couldn't believe his eyes. How could it be possible? This was the explosion of a cultivator's soul at the divine transformation stage. Yet this young man prevented it so easily. Yin waited for his master's new orders. The Sect master realized he had to save his life and decided to escape as quickly as possible. The young man wasn't going to let him go. He took a leaf from a tree and threw it after the fleeing Sect master. The Sect master crashed and fell. Julan rushed to meet him. No one wanted to let the old man go. The Sect master couldn't believe what had happened. He was stopped by an ordinary tree leaf, and in the fall, he lost his arm. The young man said he was ruthless, even killing a friend of his own sect. The Guanan sect was said to preach righteousness, yet here they were, filled with lies and betrayal. The sect master shouted, "Who is this young man? It's impossible that such strength exists, and the cultivation world doesn't know of him." The young elder said he had nothing to talk to the rascal about and told his disciple to deal with him. Everyone heard a noise and turned to look. The sect master shouted, "It's the demonic bull king!" He thought he had a hope of salvation. With his remaining hand, the man waved and cried out for help. The young man wondered where the bull had come from. He was supposed to be dealt with by the dog. Suddenly, a bull demon emerged from the dust, missing one arm. Alongside him, a demon dog appeared, carrying the bull's missing arm in its mouth. The dog looked menacing, its sharp teeth glinting, red glowing eyes shining. It was terrifying to everyone, even to the bull. The demon bull feared the young man, worried he would berate the dog for failing to destroy him. The demon king and the sect master began turning on each other, claiming they had nothing to do with it. The demon bull declared that the sect master was shameless, as he had offered to cooperate. The dog pounced on the bull demon with a fierce bark. The demon bull cried out in terror, begging to be spared, but the dog didn't let go and held the beast tightly. The sect master shouted, "I did not order the extermination of the Sun family." The demon bull cried out that the sect master was lying again, that he was the one who had destroyed that family, and the bull demon knew nothing about it. Julan bared her sword and said that probably at that time, her family had also begged for mercy, but no one had given them a chance. They were all destroyed. She swung her sword, and the sect master fell. Julan walked away from the battlefield, saying she had avenged her family. The young lady stood to the side and cried, bitterly sobbing. She screamed that she had avenged everyone. Julan threw herself onto her master's chest, continuing to cry. The young man tried to calm her down and told her not to cry. She had gotten her revenge, and now she had her whole life ahead of her. The young man remembered there was still the demon bull to resolve. The demon bull once again begged to be spared and said he was willing to serve as an ox. The young man told the girl to do what she had to do. The demon king's meat would be quite nutritious. The dog thought that even the hand of a demonic bull king was much tastier than the meat of an ordinary demonic bull. The dog wondered how good his steak would taste. The girl dealt with the bull demon in an instant. The sword didn't fail her. The young man noted that his student had gotten things done quickly, and rightly so. Julan said her revenge had been accomplished. From now on, she would definitely follow her mentor's instructions and do whatever he said. The young man said it wasn't necessary now. They'd better cook the beef. The young elder told his student to prepare a pot and build a fire. The guy was grilling meat, saying how good it smelled. Everyone turned out to be satisfied with the steak and kebabs the young men had prepared. Julan noticed to her mentor that the ginang fruit had grown a bit taller. The young man, without distracting himself from the meat, thought that ginang was a divine fruit. Smelling it could grant one 360 years of life, and eating it could grant 47,000 years. The young man decided the numbers were most likely exaggerated, but it was indeed a divine fruit, so it really should increase cultivation. The guy tasted one fruit and decided it really tasted very juicy, but he didn't feel like his cultivation was increasing. The young man speculated that maybe it wasn't a real ginang tree, just a tree with tasty fruit, that was all. He heard someone coughing in the distance. Because of the smoke, he couldn't see anything. The young man said he would go to the side and see who was hiding there. The young man saw an old man sitting near the fence, coughing. The old man saw the young man, said hello, and asked where he was. Could the stranger explain, as he seemed lost? The guy thought the old man had bad acting. Who could get lost in the southern wasteland? It was like monsters had suddenly become vegetarians. The young man asked what his grandfather's name was and where he lived. The old man said his name was Sun Yun, and he was just an ordinary farmer. The young man smirked. When would these old experts stop pretending to be simple farmers and deceiving people? The guy said they had just started dinner, and since the old man happened to be in the neighborhood, they were inviting him to the table. The old man said he would abstain but thanked them for the invitation. The young man thought that usually, all cultivators were very arrogant. This old man really looked like an ordinary farmer. Sun Yun asked if the young people were afraid of being attacked by monsters if they lived there all the time. The young man said he would be only too glad if the monsters attacked. A dog peeked out of the bushes and thought that in this manner, monsters were either roasted or stewed. The only monster lucky in this way was the dog, left to serve a dog's life. The old man looked at the young man and thought, since he really dares to live in this wasteland among demons, he's probably really a reclusive expert. The young man thought, this person doesn't have any fluctuations in spiritual power. but he still needs to be checked. Sun Yun said, since the young man was so kind to him, could he pour him something to drink? The boy asked, what exactly did the elder want to drink? The old man said, he had traveled the world a lot in his life and tasted many different wines, so he'd be happy with anything. The young man was annoyed. This old man is clearly bragging. The young man decided to brag too. No tea. In that case, I have something more interesting. The guy had a spirit wine that he had brewed from various fruits and elixirs of the highest quality. That's what I'm going to surprise the old man with. The old man said he would not dare refuse such an offer. The old man thought, the shameless young man is boasting of treasures. The young man poured the old man a whole glass of wine. The old man tasted the wine and was stunned. What kind of wine is this? He thought. Just the smell of it would make you drunk. The young man thought he could brag too. He was pleased that he could surprise the old man. The elder concluded, this guy has excellent wine, comparable to the wine of immortals. The old man knew the legend that 4 great immortal drinks had appeared in the cultivation world. The 9-spice spiritual wine, the red mulberry wine, the red silk wine, and the crimson dust wine. Each of these drinks could improve the perfection of the drinker and help make a breakthrough to the next level. The old man thought, if this wine is like one of those drinks, even 1 cup could be exchanged for a major sect treasure. The old man tried to calm down and keep his composure. You can't show surprise in front of a young man. He drank all the wine, sighed, and thought he had been stuck at the peak of the divine transformation stage for years, but broke through right after taking a sip of this wine. This is an amazing wine. It is definitely a magical drink, comparable to the 4 great wines of the immortal. The old man wondered about the young man, who he was. He looks like an ordinary man, but what he pulls out is amazing. Sun Yun decided that he shouldn't lose to the young man so easily. The old man said, flashing his eyes, what does the young man think of this fruit? He showed him the fruit. The young man asked again, what kind of fruit is this? Before that, he had tensed when the old man reached into his pants. Was it just some stale plum? Why is he even showing it? The old man said, it was a magic fruit, a sacred fruit that I got after breaking through to the land of the immortals and miraculously escaping death. The old man invited the young master to taste the fruit and tell him what he thought of it. The boy said, the fruit is certainly not bad. I used to eat a lot of plums like that. The old man resented. This is the divine fruit of cauldron. It can't grow everywhere like Chinese cabbage. The old man told the young man, it's very unseemly to brag so much. The young man agreed. Though this is a cultivation world, it's still ancient times. In ancient times, Yanggu had to travel thousands of miles to get fresh plums.